When you're a kid, you don't always understand when something isn't normal. You don't question strange sounds in the house. You don't question the man your parents say isn't there. You don't question why your bedroom door is open in the morning when you know you closed it. You just accept it. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 disturbing childhood memory horror stories. These aren't dramatic retellings. They're quiet memories that stayed with people long after they grew up. The kind of memories that feel fuzzy around the edges, but crystal clear in the worst parts. If you're listening at night, you might not want to think too hard about what your childhood home was like after dark. The first story comes from someone who asked to remain anonymous. They said this is something they've never told anyone in full detail. They grew up in a small 2-story house at the end of a cul-de-sac. Nothing unusual about it. Quiet neighborhood. Street lights that buzz softly at night. The kind of place where you'd expect to feel safe. They were about 6 years old when it started. Every night after their parents tucked them in, they would lie facing the wall. Their bed was positioned so that if they rolled over, they could see directly into the hallway through their open door. And every night, sometime after midnight, they would wake up. Not because of a noise, but because someone was whispering their name, softly, from the hallway. At first, they assumed it was their mom. The whisper sounded almost gentle. Just their name, drawn out slightly. They would sit up and say, "Yeah?" No answer. They'd wait. Nothing. So they'd get out of bed and walk to their parents' room at the end of the hall. Every time both of their parents were asleep, they asked their mom about it once. Her response was simple. "I never call you at night." The whispering continued for weeks. Sometimes it sounded closer. Sometimes it sounded like it was right at the doorway. But what really disturbed them didn't happen until one night when they finally turned over fast enough. They woke up to the whisper again. This time it felt closer than usual. Instead of answering, they rolled onto their back immediately and looked toward the door. They said there was a man standing there. Not inside the room, just outside it. Tall, completely still, too dark to see facial features. He wasn't leaning or peeking. He was standing straight, watching. They didn't scream. They didn't move. They just slowly pulled the blanket over their face. And the whispering stopped completely after that night. They never saw the figure again. But the hallway light bulb would burn out every few weeks for no reason, even after being replaced. The second story was sent in by a woman named Elise. She said she didn't realize how disturbing her memory was until she tried describing it out loud as an adult. When she was 8, she had an imaginary friend. Her parents thought it was normal. She called him Daniel. She would talk to him in her room, laugh at things no one else could hear. But Daniel wasn't invisible to her. She insists she could see him. She described him as a boy about her age wearing outdated clothes, suspenders, a pale shirt, brown shoes. Her parents assumed she just had a vivid imagination. Until one afternoon, her mom overheard something strange. Elise was in her room giggling. Her mom paused outside the door and listened. Elise said, "No, Daniel, you can't go in there. That's where they sleep." There was silence. Then Elise responded, "Okay, but only for a little bit." Her mom opened the door immediately. Elise was alone, sitting cross-legged on the floor, smiling at the closet. Her mom asked who she was talking to. Elise said, "Daniel wants to watch you when you're sleeping." Her mom laughed it off. But that night around 3 a.m., Elise's dad woke up suddenly. He said he felt like someone was standing beside the bed. He opened his eyes, and for a split second, he thought he saw a small figure near the doorway. Short. Still. Then it was gone. The next morning, Elise announced that Daniel said goodbye. "He said he can't stay anymore," she explained casually. "He said you noticed him." She never mentioned Daniel again. Years later, after Elise grew up and the house was being renovated, workers found something inside the wall of her bedroom closet. An old photograph, black and white, of a young boy wearing suspenders, standing stiffly, unsmiling. The third story is from someone named Marcus. He grew up in a rural area surrounded by farmland. His closest neighbor lived half a mile away. When he was 10, he shared a room with his younger brother. Their beds were parallel, separated by a small nightstand. Marcus remembers waking up one night to the sound of breathing. Not his brother's. This breathing was heavier, slower. He assumed it was coming from the hallway until he realized it was coming from underneath his bed. He froze. The breathing continued, deep, controlled. He slowly leaned over the side of his mattress, just enough to see the floor. Nothing. But the breathing didn't stop. It sounded like it was directly below him. His brother turned over in his sleep, and the breathing stopped instantly. Marcus didn't move for the rest of the night. The next morning, he checked under the bed. Empty. He tried convincing himself it was imagination, until 3 nights later, when it happened again. This time, he didn't look. Instead, he listened. And after about a minute of steady breathing, he heard something else. A whisper. Not from the hallway, not from the closet, from beneath him. It said, "He doesn't hear me." Marcus jumped out of bed and ran to his parents' room. They searched the house, found nothing. The breathing never happened again. But his younger brother started sleepwalking around that same time, standing in doorways at night, silent, eyes open, as if listening. The unsettling thing about childhood memories is that they're easy to dismiss. Adults call them dreams, imagination, night terrors. But sometimes the details don't fade. Sometimes they sharpen. Sometimes they stay with you in ways that don't make sense. The whisper in the hallway, the boy in suspenders, the breathing under the bed. As children, we don't always know when something isn't supposed to be there. We just accept it. And maybe that's why some things choose to show themselves then. Because children don't question. They just listen. If you ever had a memory from childhood that still doesn't sit right, you're not alone. And maybe it wasn't just your imagination.